The galaxy had known peace for only a decade when Captain Elias Ward, a human veteran of the Terran Union, received an unexpected call from the Imperial Palace of Xanathar, a proud alien empire that once enslaved half the known worlds. The message was short, formal, and chilling. The Emperor requests your presence. Bring your principles of human morality. His daughters require re-education. Elias thought it was a joke. The Emperor of Xanathar, known for his cold arrogance and hatred of humans, now wanted his daughters to be taught by one. But the seal was real, and the summons was signed by Emperor Vral himself. When Elias arrived at the Grand Alien Palace, silence followed him. The guards, tall and blue-skinned with golden eyes, looked down at him as if he were an insect. Humans weren't welcome here, not after the war. Inside the throne hall, Emperor Vral sat high upon his crystal seat, flanked by banners depicting battles humans had lost. Yet his face was unreadable. Only the faint flicker of worry broke his pride. You humans, the Emperor began, his voice deep as thunder, speak much of mercy, compassion, and loyalty. My daughters. He paused, his golden eyes narrowing. They lack these virtues. You will fix that. Elias almost laughed, but the Emperor's glare froze him. Your Majesty, I'm not a priest or a saint. I'm a soldier. Exactly, the Emperor said. You've seen death. You value life. My daughters see neither. Then the Emperor gestured and the doors behind him opened. 3 alien women walked in, tall, beautiful, but cold as ice. Their silver hair shimmered under the palace lights and their eyes glowed faintly blue. The eldest, Princess Lyra, didn't even glance at Elias. She looked straight ahead, chin high, disgust clear on her face. The middle one, Seren, smirked slightly as if amused. The youngest, Vela, seemed different, curious, cautious, almost afraid. These are my daughters, the Emperor said. You will teach them what it means to be human. Elias bowed slightly, though his stomach twisted. How long do I have? Until they understand, the Emperor replied. Or until you fail, the meaning was clear. Failure meant death. That night, Elias was given a small house near the palace. The 3 princesses would live there with him, under guard, under surveillance, under constant tension. The Emperor called it re-education. Elias called it a trap. When the princesses arrived, they brought no luggage, just arrogance. Lyra refused to eat human food. Seren mocked the plain wooden chairs. Vela sat quietly, staring at the stars outside. Elias sighed. You think you're here to learn about humans, he said softly. But what you'll really learn is why humans survive. Seren rolled her eyes. By luck? By heart, Elias answered. And by pain. He didn't know yet how deep those words would go. That night, thunder rumbled across the alien sky. Elias sat awake, thinking about the strange mission. He had trained soldiers, not princesses. What could he possibly teach them that would change their hearts? But deep down he felt something shifting. The Emperor's fear, the daughter's coldness, the strange destiny that brought him here. It was all connected to something much larger. Somewhere in the palace shadows, the Emperor watched the surveillance feed of his daughters sitting across from the human man. His advisors whispered that this experiment was madness. But the Emperor whispered back, if the human spirit truly is as powerful as they claim, then let my daughters be the proof. And as lightning flashed over the alien capital, 3 alien princesses began their journey into humanity, and 1 human unknowingly began a story that would shake the empire itself. The first morning, in the small human-style house was chaos. Lyra refused to wake up on time. Serene broke the alarm clock in half with her bare hands. And Vela, half asleep, accidentally short-circuited the kitchen lights with her alien bracelet. Elias stood in the doorway, holding 3 cups of steaming human coffee, watching the royal mess unfold. Welcome to your first human morning, he said dryly. Lesson 1, humility. Lyra's cold eyes cut toward him. We are daughters of the Emperor. We do not need your primitive rituals. Elias smiled faintly. That's exactly what every tyrant said before falling in history books, Seren scoffed. History is written by the victors. Exactly, Elias replied. And humans write a lot. That comment silenced them for a moment. Vela watched him carefully as if trying to understand the strange mix of humor and pain in his tone. Over the next few days, Elias tried everything, showing them simple human traditions, cooking, teamwork, empathy. He even made them help an injured maintenance droid in the garden. Lyra refused at first. Machines are replaceable. Maybe, Elias said, kneeling beside the broken droid. But loyalty isn't. He fixed the droid's wiring slowly, with patient hands. When it blinked back to life, the small machine chirped and followed him around like a pet. Something in Vela's eyes softened. Seren pretended not to care, but Lyra looked away. At dinner that night, Elias cooked human food. Simple stew, nothing fancy. The princesses sniffed it like it was poison. You call this nourishment? Lyra asked. Elias chuckled. Humans call this survival. Not everything needs to be royal to be good. Vela hesitated, then took a spoonful. Her eyes widened a little. It's warm, she murmured. Strange, but warm. Elias smiled gently. That's how humanity works. We don't always have much, but we make warmth where we can. Seren rolled her eyes, but secretly took a bite too. Only Lyra stayed defiant. Her pride a fortress no human warmth could melt yet. That night, Elias walked outside, looking at the twin moons above Zenithar's sky. He wondered if this mission was hopeless. The Emperor's daughters were beautiful, yes, but they were broken inside. Not evil, just raised without understanding love. Then he heard footsteps. It was Vela. She stood quietly beside him, her silver hair glowing faintly. Captain, she said softly. Why do you help us? You don't even like our people. Elias turned his head slowly. You're right. I fought against your empire for years. I've seen what your soldiers did to humans. But he looked up at the stars again. If someone doesn't start teaching forgiveness, we'll never stop fighting. Vela's voice trembled. Father says mercy is weakness. He smiled sadly. Then maybe that's why your empire is dying. For a moment she looked hurt, but she didn't walk away. Inside, unseen, Lyra was watching them through the window, her hand gripping the curtain. There was something she couldn't name. Anger? Jealousy? Confusion? In her world, emotions were forbidden. Connection was punished. Yet here was a human, fragile, scarred, mortal, teaching her sisters things their entire empire could not. Later that night, an alarm echoed faintly from the palace. A coded message came through the wall communicator. Observation report requested. Status of the experiment. Elias glanced at the message inside. Still breathing, he said under his breath. For now. When he turned, he saw Vela had fallen asleep on the couch, her head resting on a human book, The Little Prince. He smiled faintly. But deep in his gut, something told him this was only the calm before the storm. The Emperor hadn't sent his daughters for education. He had sent them for testing. And Elias Ward, the human teacher, had just become the most dangerous variable in the Empire's future. By the third week, something began to change inside the walls of the small human-style house. The Emperor's daughters no longer treated Elias like a servant or a teacher. They watched him, studied him, like a puzzle they couldn't solve. Every morning he made them work in the garden. The once arrogant princesses now had dirt under their nails. Vela even started humming human songs while watering the plants, though she didn't know their meanings. But the real shift came one evening, when a call came from the palace. Captain Ward, said the Emperor's advisor through the hologram, you are invited to the imperial banquet tomorrow. Bring the princesses. His Majesty wishes to see their progress. Elias looked at the three daughters. Lyra's jaw tightened. Seren looked uneasy for the first time. Vela simply whispered, We're not ready. The next evening they entered the glittering banquet hall. The crowd fell silent. Hundreds of nobles turned to stare, three royal daughters walking beside a human. The Emperor's golden eyes scanned them. My daughters, he said slowly. Have you learned anything? Lyra, proud as ever, spoke first. Humans waste time with weakness, the hall murmured in approval. But the Emperor's face did not soften. He looked at Seren. She hesitated. They care for one another, she said. Even when there's no benefit. That silence again. Then he turned to the youngest. Vela? She looked at Elias, then back at her father. Humans build families out of nothing, she whispered. Even with no blood, no empire, they still call each other home. A faint tremor crossed the Emperor's expression, but he said nothing more. He dismissed the court and told them to return to the house. That night, Elias sat outside by the fire pit. Seren joined him silently. She didn't mock him anymore. Instead, she asked, Do humans ever feel empty? Elias smiled sadly. All the time. That's why we fill the emptiness with love. She frowned. Love makes you weak. He looked into the fire. No. Love makes you choose what's worth fighting for. Before Saren could reply, a shadow moved near the gate. The droid chirped in alarm. Elias stood, hand on his blaster. 3 masked figures stepped from the darkness. Assassins dressed in the Emperor's elite colors. Step aside, human. One hissed. The experiment ends tonight. Elias fired first. The garden erupted with flashes of blue plasma. Serene screamed. Vela ducked behind the bench, and Lyra, who had just come out to see the noise, grabbed a dropped sword with surprising speed. In seconds it was over. 2 assassins down. 1 escaped into the forest. Elias knelt beside Lyra, who stood shaking, the alien blade humming with energy. You saved your sisters, he said quietly. Her voice trembled. I reacted. I didn't think, he smiled. That's what protecting someone feels like. When the palace guards arrived, the Emperor himself came in a fury. You were attacked? He demanded. Elias met his gaze. By your own men. Someone doesn't want your daughters to change. The Emperor's face hardened. You think you understand my empire? Elias replied calmly. No, but I understand fear. As they locked eyes, an unspoken truth passed between them. The Emperor feared something even more than rebellion. He feared transformation. Later that night, while treating Elias's wound, Vela whispered, Why would anyone want to stop us from learning? Elias looked at her bandaged hands. Because if you learn to feel, you'll stop obeying without question. And that terrifies them. Outside, thunder rolled again. The experiment had just turned into a revolution, and the first spark was already burning in 3 alien hearts. The storm that night didn't fade. It grew. It raged across the alien capital as if echoing the storm rising within the Emperor's walls. The assassination attempt had failed, but its echo reached every corner of the palace. Whispers spread like fire. The Emperor's daughters protected a human. By morning, the rumor had become legend. Inside the small house, Elias bandaged his arm again, wincing slightly. The droid beeped, offering a medical patch, but he waved it away. I've had worse, he muttered. Lyra, sitting nearby, couldn't stop staring at him. For the first time, she saw beyond his human skin. She saw the scars, the discipline, the quiet courage that no royal ceremony could ever teach. You didn't run, she said softly. When they attacked, he looked up, half smiling. You didn't either. Her lips parted, but no words came. Something unfamiliar, something dangerously human moved in her chest. Serene entered, her usual confidence gone. The palace guards questioned everyone, she said. They think the attack was meant to test you. Elias frowned. Test me? Yes, Serene replied. To see how far you'd go to protect us. Before he could answer, the wall communicator flashed again. The Emperor's voice filled the room, deep and sharp. Captain Ward, bring my daughters to the palace immediately. When they arrived, the throne room was colder than ever. Advisors stood in 2 lines, their faces unreadable. The Emperor stared down at Elias with eyes like molten gold. You were attacked, he said slowly, on Imperial soil, under my command. Yes, Your Majesty, Elias said. By your own soldiers, gasps filled the hall. Lyra and Saran stiffened. Even Vela stepped forward slightly, her small voice trembling. Father, he saved us. Silence. The Emperor roared, and the sound crashed like thunder. The court fell silent instantly, then he stood. Do you think I sent my daughters to you for kindness, human? For charity? Elias said nothing, but his jaw tightened. The Emperor's voice dropped low. I sent them to understand weakness, to see why humans cling to compassion instead of power. He stepped closer. And yet, you've made them disobey. You've made them question. Lyra's voice cracked. Father, please. He turned sharply toward her. You are a princess of Zenithar. You will not plead for a human. The hall trembled with his fury, but Elias didn't bow. With respect, Emperor, he said firmly. If they're learning compassion, then maybe your empire should too. For a moment, the entire room froze. Then, shockingly, the Emperor laughed. A deep, bitter sound. You think you've changed them? You've merely planted rebellion. He waved his hand toward the guards. Take them back. All of them. The re-education ends now. Guards moved forward. But Vela ran in front of Elias, arms spread wide. No, he's not our enemy. The guards hesitated, unsure what to do. The youngest princess shielding a human was unheard of. Lyra stepped beside her. Then Seren. 3 royal daughters standing against their own father's command. The Emperor's expression hardened, his voice like ice. So be it, he turned his back. Let the experiment fail. They were dragged away under heavy escort, locked in separate palace chambers. Elias was thrown into a holding cell, alone, cold and bruised. But his heart burned with pride. They had chosen. In her darkened chamber, Lyra paced restlessly. Her reflection in the mirror looked different now. Not the perfect royal image, but someone alive, awake. Someone human. When the guard outside dozed off, she whispered into her bracelet communicator. Elias, can you hear me? Static. Then his voice, faint but calm. I'm here. We can't stay prisoners, she said. He'll erase everything we learned. Elias smiled in the dark. Then we'll have to remind him what humans do best. What's that? Escape and fight back. Outside, the storm returned. But this time it wasn't chaos. It was the sound of rebellion beginning to breathe. The palace slept under a blanket of electric rain. But beneath the silence, rebellion was moving, soft, hidden, and human. Elias sat inside the cold holding cell, his back against the wall, tracing cracks on the floor with his boot. The droid that had once followed him in the garden lay dismantled in the corner, its head blinking faintly, as if still loyal even in pieces. Not the first time I've been locked up, Elias muttered. But this time, it's for the right cause. Through the ventilation shaft above him came a faint metallic tap, 3 short beats, then 2 long. He froze. It was the signal he had taught Vela during training exercises. I'm safe, but not for long. He smiled faintly. They're still out there. In another part of the palace, Princess Lyra moved like a ghost through the corridors. She wore a stolen guard's uniform, her silver hair hidden beneath the helmet. Each step she took felt heavier, not from fear, but from realization. For the first time in her life, she wasn't following orders. She was choosing. She reached the lower detention wing and pressed her hand to the scanner. The door hissed open. Inside, Elias looked up and his tired eyes softened. Didn't think I'd ever see a royal sneaking into a dungeon for me. Don't flatter yourself, Lyra said, though her voice trembled. We need to move fast. The Emperor has ordered your transport to the upper labs at dawn. Elias frowned. Labs? She nodded grimly. He doesn't just want to end this experiment, he wants to dissect it. Meanwhile, Serene and Vela were in the royal data chamber, hacking into the Emperor's restricted archives using codes they'd stolen from his advisors. The glowing alien symbols on the console painted their faces blue. Vela's fingers shook as she typed. He's not just studying humans, she whispered. He's been collecting genetic samples. Soldiers, scientists, even children. Saren's eyes widened. He's trying to create hybrids. Half human, half Zenithar. On the monitor, they found a chilling entry labeled Project Ascendancy. A recorded voice played, the Emperor himself. Human empathy is a threat, but also a tool. Combine their emotion with Zenithar's strength and we create a new generation. Loyal, powerful, and unbreakable. Vela's voice broke. He used us. He sent us to learn from Elias. Not to change, but to steal what makes humans different. Serene slammed her fist on the console. Then we give him something he can't control. Back in the dungeon, Elias and Lyra slipped through the maintenance tunnels, guided by dim red lights. He noticed her breathing quicken. You're scared, he said quietly. I'm furious, she corrected. He lied to us. To all of us. Elias stopped and looked at her. Then let's show him what his daughters really learned. They reached the courtyard just as Seren and Vela appeared from the shadows. The sisters' faces were smeared with dust, their eyes blazing with resolve. Found something, Seren said, handing Elias a small data crystal. Proof of Project Ascendancy. If we can reach the communication tower, we can broadcast it to every planet in the Empire. Elias nodded. Then that's our way out. The 4 of them ran through the garden, the same one where they'd first argued, trained, and shared human meals. Now it had become their battlefield. Alarms blared. Guards swarmed. Plasma lights cut through the night. Elias fired twice, hitting the tower's control drones. Vela, get that door open! She pressed her palm to the panel, her alien energy crackling through the locks. The gate opened with a shriek. Go! Elias shouted. But just as they reached the outer corridor, a deep voice stopped them cold. Going somewhere. The Emperor stood there, alone, unarmed, but more terrifying than any weapon. His golden eyes burned through them. So, my daughters choose a human over their father. Lyra stepped forward, her chin high. No, father. We choose truth. The Emperor's gaze shifted to Elias. You've done more damage than you realize, human. Elias's voice was calm. Maybe, but at least now they feel. The Emperor's expression darkened. Then feel this. He pressed a button on his wristband and the entire palace went into lockdown. Lights turned crimson. Gates sealed. And as the alarm screamed across the city, the real battle, the one for hearts, freedom, and the future of two species, had just begun. The crimson lights painted the marble halls like rivers of blood. Every door sealed shut. Every path forward became a trap. The entire palace had turned into a cage. Elias stood back to back with the Emperor's daughters, Lyra clutching her stolen plasma blade, Seren holding the stolen data crystal, and Vela trembling as energy flared in her palms. From the upper steps, Emperor Vraal descended slowly, his golden robes dragging across the floor like the wings of a fallen god. Behind him, armored guards filled the shadows, their eyes glowing faintly blue. Drop your weapons, the Emperor ordered, voice echoing through the hall. No, Lyra said, her voice steady but shaking inside. We're done obeying. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You mistake rebellion for freedom, my child. Freedom is rebellion, Elias said. At least the first kind worth having. Vraal's gaze landed on the human and something cold and ancient flickered in his face. Do you think I don't understand freedom? I was once like you. The words froze everyone. Even the guards hesitated. What do you mean? Seren demanded. Vraal's voice deepened. Before the wars? Before your Terran Union rose, I fought beside humans. I saw their passion, their fire. I envied it. He stepped closer, each word trembling with memory. But then I saw what that fire does. It burns everything. Families, planets, civilizations. So I vowed to remove it from my people forever. No emotion. No weakness. Only order. Lyra's breath caught. That's why you banned love. Why you raised us to be cold. The Emperor's tone sharpened. I did it to protect you. Elias stepped forward. No, you did it to control them. The guards raised their weapons instantly, but the Emperor raised a hand to stop them. His golden eyes locked on Elias, burning with fury and fascination. You speak like a philosopher, yet you are just a soldier. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe, but soldiers see what kings refuse to. The Emperor's jaw clenched. Enough. He activated his wrist control. Energy cuffs snapped onto the princess's wrists, glowing blue and forcing them to their knees. Vela cried out, sparks flaring around her hands. Father, stop! Serene shouted. You're hurting her. It's only pain, he said coldly. Pain builds strength. Elias's eyes darkened. No. Pain without compassion builds monsters. He lunged forward, striking the Emperor's control band with a precise shot from his compact pistol. The cuffs sparked and dissolved. The Emperor roared, his power suit igniting in golden flame-like energy. He hurled Elias backward with a kinetic blast that sent him crashing into a pillar. Captain, Lyra screamed. Elias groaned, pushing himself up. Still breathing, he muttered. The Emperor advanced, the air crackling around him. You've poisoned my daughters with human delusion. You've made them weak. Vela rose, energy swirling between her palms like a miniature sun. No, father. You made us blind. He helped us see, she fired. The glowing energy struck his armor, shattering part of it, but it didn't stop him. He staggered, snarled, and charged forward. Lyra intercepted his blade with her own. Sparks flew. Father and daughter locked eyes across the humming plasma. You taught me power, she said through clenched teeth. Now I'll teach you purpose. Her strike cut through the Emperor's shoulder plate. He roared in pain, a sound the galaxy hadn't heard in decades. Seren threw the data crystal to Elias. Now! The tower! He caught it, sprinting toward the corridor that led to the communications hub. 2 guards blocked his path, but he dropped them with swift, trained precision. Behind him, chaos raged, blue and gold energy clashing. The daughters fighting their own father not with hate, but with hope. As Elias reached the tower's control pad, he jammed the crystal into the system. Let's see your empire look truth in the eye. Screens across the city flickered. The Emperor's secret project files, Project Ascendancy, the hybrid experiments. The stolen human DNA flashed across every broadcast. In the streets below, thousands of citizens watched in stunned silence. Then came the sound no ruler could silence: outrage. The Emperor turned, his fury pure and desperate. "You destroyed everything." Elias stood tall. "No, I set them free. Before the Emperor could strike." His own power core, overloaded by Vela's last surge, exploded in blinding light. When the smoke cleared, the great throne hall was half destroyed, and the Emperor lay fallen amidst the ruins of his empire. Lyra dropped to her knees beside him. "Father!" His golden eyes dimmed. "Perhaps I was wrong. Humans are dangerous because they love." Then he was gone. Elias exhaled, battered but alive, surrounded by 3 trembling daughters of an empire, and the dawn of something entirely new. Smoke curled through the shattered throne hall. The marble floor, once polished and proud, was cracked and scorched with streaks of gold and blue light. The war between heart and power had ended, not with conquest but with understanding bought in blood. Elias stood in the wreckage, his uniform torn, his breathing heavy. Around him, the Emperor's daughters slowly rose, 3 alien women forever changed. Lyra's eyes glowed softly, no longer cold but filled with something deeper: grief, strength, and the faint shimmer of hope. Serene knelt beside her father's body, her fingers trembling as she brushed dust from his armor. Vela stood at the broken window, watching the sky where dawn was breaking for the first time since the lockdown. The golden light fell across the ruins like mercy itself. "He's gone," Serene whispered. "The Empire will fall into chaos." Elias looked at her. "Or it will rise again. Different this time." Lyra turned toward him, her face unreadable. "You think the Council will ever accept peace with humans after this?" Elias smiled faintly. "They'll have no choice. You've already shown them what real strength looks like." A faint hum filled the air. The palace's emergency systems flickered online. Across the giant hollow screens outside, the transmission still played. Images of Project Ascendancy, the Emperor's lies, and the truth spoken by a human soldier. Crowds gathered in the streets below. Aliens of every rank and color stared in disbelief, murmuring words that hadn't been spoken on Zenithar in centuries. Freedom, compassion, truth. Vela turned, tears glistening in her eyes. "We did it, didn't we?" Elias nodded. "You did. You chose to be more than what you were made to be." For the first time she smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that made the broken hall seem brighter. Then the sound of footsteps echoed from behind them. Dozens of soldiers entered, weapons raised, but their commander, an older alien with silver scars, lifted a hand. "Lower your arms," he ordered. "The Emperor is dead. Long live the heirs." The soldiers hesitated, then slowly obeyed. Lyra's heart pounded. "Heirs?" The commander bowed his head. "The people have seen the truth. You are the Emperor's daughters. The throne is yours." Seren's eyes widened. "All 3 of us?" "Yes," Elias said quietly. "Rule together. Balance each other. That's how humanity survives, and maybe how your kind will too." Lyra looked at him, voice trembling between duty and emotion. "And what about you, Captain Ward?" He exhaled slowly, gazing up at the fractured ceiling. "My job's done. I was sent to teach, not to rule." "But you changed us," Vela said, stepping forward. "You changed everything." Elias smiled sadly. "Then my lesson worked." Outside, the sun finally broke through the clouds. The light spilled through the shattered dome, painting their faces gold. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The silence wasn't heavy, it was sacred. The weight of a new beginning. Lyra finally whispered, "What will you do now?" Elias looked at her, then at the rising city beyond. "Maybe rebuild the garden," he said softly. "You'd be surprised how much peace starts with a seed." Seren laughed through her tears. "You're impossible." "Humans usually are," he said, grinning faintly. Then slowly he turned to leave. But before he could step away, Lyra reached out and caught his hand. Her touch was warm, trembling. "You taught us to care," she said. "Don't disappear before we show you what that means." He hesitated, the soldier inside him torn between duty and something he'd long buried. "And what does it mean?" he asked quietly. Vela's voice answered from behind her sister. "It means you're family now." Elias froze. The word echoed through the ruined hall, sinking deep into the cracks of stone and memory. Family, something neither empire nor war had ever given him. He turned, eyes softening, and for the first time since the war, he allowed himself to smile fully. Then let's build something worth protecting. Outside, the people of Zenithar began to gather beneath the palace steps, chanting not for war, not for vengeance, but for peace. The banners of the old empire were lowered. In their place rose a new symbol, a human hand and an alien star intertwined. And high above, on the palace balcony, 3 daughters of an emperor stood beside a single human, watching their worlds finally learn what their father never could. That love, not power, is the force that truly conquers galaxies.